This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. I have to show you the latest propaganda that the NBC Today show is putting out in regards to a small movement that's occurring where people are actually moving away from wireless earphones and going back to the old version of earphones. People are starting to move away from that because there's actually people who are informing them about the dangers of EMF, of electromagnetic frequencies, which is a very true thing. So it's good that there's a movement going on. But what really needs to occur, and of course the reason that this is covered on the Today Show, is they want to tell you that it's really no big deal. That, hey, the federal, the FCC, all these commissions out there, the communications commissions, they're all saying that it's perfectly fine. Kind of just like the CDC tells us everything's perfectly fine when it's not. Kind of like the FDA tells us that all the food that's on the shelves in the stores, we don't have to worry about it because they've approved it and they've put it there. Then we only find out after we've eaten it that it's got weed killer in it, or people hold up magnets to their food and suddenly they're seeing that their food's magnetic because it has graphene oxide in it, right? Because we could trust those people. So they're talking about this, but of course they're trying to deflect and say the frequencies aren't very serious. But what the reality of the matter is, people need to start evaluating mental health, the problem that people are having psychologically, the illnesses that are spreading like wildfire, how many people are getting sick from so many different things pertaining to their mental health, as far as even things going all the way to Alzheimer's, etc., right? And this has to do with EMF frequencies. It has to do with radiation exposure. And while they'll tell you on TV, don't worry about it. We know that this type of mind control will work on some. But anybody out there who is covering this should be thinking to themselves, well, if your earbuds are bad for you, and I go to, headphones that have a cord, how about just in general your cell phone? Really, just your cell phone in your pocket all day, right by, your crotch, for the males out there, for people who are out there who are trying to have kids and can't have kids and don't understand the effects of that, or just in general, always being on it, staring at the screen. You're getting those frequencies 24/7. People sleep with their phone right next to their bed. They don't want to go into that on Good Morning America or on the Today Show or any of these shows out there. They just want to make you know that, hey, the earpods are okay. They talk about Bluetooth technology, and they certainly don't go into any detail about the dangers of 5G. But first, I want to show you this propaganda about how old school headphones are making a comeback and how they tell you, hey, don't worry about EMF frequencies. If the FCC approves it, it's got to be perfectly okay, right?
EMF radiation.
Have you seen these videos?
Actually carry more risk.
Social media users claiming wireless earbuds are unsafe because of radiation from electromagnetic frequencies, or EMFs.
This is an RF meter. What it does is it measures radio frequencies in the air.
Collectively, videos like these have racked up more than 64 million views.
300 times. This poor girl's frying your neurons just to show this to you guys.
A lot of people on social media saying these wireless earbuds provide a radiation risk. What say you as a doctor?
When it comes to radiation with the wireless earbuds, it's a Bluetooth radiation. It's non-ionizing, and it's a very low amount of radiation, a very low energy level. And so it's really not enough to change the DNA inside the cells and to cause cancer or tumor growth like some people are concerned about.
Dr. John Torres says the research is not conclusive about prolonged use because these devices have only been on the market for 18 years.
If you use them for 5, 6, 7 decades, 8 hours a day, every day, that we don't know. But right now, as of now, average, even heavy use shouldn't be a concern.
Samsung didn't respond to our request for comment, but Apple's website says its AirPods have been approved as safe by the Federal Communications Commission, which sets the maximum level of radio frequency radiation that a device can emit at any given time. Dr. Torres says in the here and now, the bigger concern with in-ear headphones is the volume.
What do we need to know when it comes to volume control?
And that's a very, very big concern, especially with children, because it's a cumulative process, the damage you get that causes hearing loss. The concern with these in-ear earbuds is that they occlude the ear canal, and so all the energy from that noise is directed straight at the ear canal or the eardrum itself.
He suggests limiting the volume on headphones through your settings or by using apps. And if someone standing next to you can hear your music, that's a sign it's too loud to be safe.
My head has a dent!
What is gamer's head? Is it real? Should we be worried about it?
So it's got a few names: gamer's head, headphone dent. A lot of people are saying, well, that's my skull's getting deformed. It's not their skull getting deformed. What's happening is the soft tissue we have on top of our head is just getting dented in because they're wearing these hour after hour. After a few hours, especially if you go to sleep, wake up the next morning, that should be gone.
So that's what you call basic propaganda, right? Basic propaganda. People actually understood what EMF frequencies are. I always correlate it to somebody out there that hasn't studied this stuff or looked into it. I just tell them, would you like to spend the day with your head inside of a microwave? And then they just laugh and they go, oh, well, what does that mean? And so it's the same type of thing, right? Maybe not as hot. But what they failed to tell you about stuff like this, which of course we understand that this is by design. This is to make people out there not worry about any movement there might be out there getting people to get rid of these wireless devices. They tell you, no, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. But what they don't tell you, again on purpose, is that, well, they even tell you, well, there is some EMF, but it's not really bad. It doesn't hit a certain level. Well, when you're wearing this on your ear all day, because people who have these in have it in for a long period of time. Some people have it in all day. They work with these in. They take phone calls. They have one in an ear, right? All day long. How about the long-term effects of having this in for a long period of time? They don't go into detail about that because they don't want you to wake up to what's really going on. During the outbreak, how all these towers started popping up, how they told you, hey, don't listen to anyone out there that talks about these towers. They're all conspiracy nuts. Then you say, well, can you tell us that it's safe for us? Well, we can't do that either. Well, okay, of course they can't do that either. And nobody at all asks these people, asks the government, who, if this is a corporation thing, who's giving the corporations the rights to put these up on our public roads? Right? Does anyone ever wonder that? You see these towers all around and then you just go, oh, okay. Well, the towers are supposed to connect us to the internet faster, right? And our phones faster, right? So then we have to assume Verizon and AT&T, right? They're the ones who are putting these up. Are they getting permission from the civilians to put these things up on roads? Just like in a separate video I covered, was Disney getting permission to buy public roads from the citizens to buy up all the roads so they could build their little smart cities all around the United States of America? Because corporations are buying roads and nobody's blinking about it. Just like China's buying land, all these stories. Nobody's blinking, right? Nobody's blinking about it. Nobody thinks for 5 seconds how these towers went up. So when we think about all the problems going on, how everybody's depressed, right? We can look at the basic stuff with the media and what they're doing. But you could really look at the origins of radiation exposure. You can look at the origins of that with all the things that are starting to become normalized, how no one can have kids anymore. Nobody blinks. Nobody blinks, and that's why they constantly keep you distracted with nonsense. They want you to argue over things that any human being should be saying is totally insane, right? Like men having babies, people castrating their... These are all things that aren't even worth anybody's time to discuss. Normal time period, when people were normal and sane, you'd be locked in a cell for even mentioning something like this and being serious about it. Right? But they tell us we've evolved. We've evolved because, of course, we've gone along with all of these things that are not healthy for us mentally and physically. So they tell us we've evolved because they keep empowering stupid people. And the more we have stupid people telling us what's right and wrong, well, the worse off humanity is. And that's why it's very important for them to control speech. So back to the story. You hear them how they talk about this, right? And they can't completely lie to you and tell you flat out it's a complete conspiracy. So what they say is, hey, look, we see that people online on TikTok and all these places are talking about, and that's a great thing. I'm happy to see that. But why is it stopping there? It should be continuing on with all of these devices, right? But they want you to think that there's a way, oh, I can't give up my phone, but I could give up my earbuds and connect it with a wire, right? That's okay. But if you start talking about getting rid of your phone, well, that's too far because why? People are dependent and obsessed and in love with their tech, which like I've been saying for a long time. They needed to wait for years and years and years so people became so dependent and so obsessed with technology that they'd refuse even if they came out and told you that the phone could give you cancer. Do you think people would give up their phone? Do you think if the mainstream media actually wanted to tell the truth for a day and they came out and they said it and they said, look, these towers, all this stuff, it's giving people cancer really fast and they're not going to live long. And there's a very good chance if you're on your phone more than 4 hours a day every day, or the phone is near your body for more than 4 hours a day every day, that you could get cancer or die. The people would say, I'll take my chances. Is that proven? Can we get a triple check on that? They wouldn't care. They wouldn't. They'd be more concerned about how do they go from having a cell phone being dependent on a phone to moving to the next phase. And of course, eventually, I believe that they're going to tell everyone this. And that'll be one of the ways they convince them to get the technology inside their bodies. Now, they will never think twice about, well, if it's dangerous there, how could it not be dangerous in you? They'll be able to convince them. They can convince them of anything. They're, again, convincing people that men can have babies. They're actually having debates in Congress about what is a man and what is a woman. So you sit here and you can think about all you want. You could say that's a crazy notion to think that they could convince people that a device that could give them cancer, that they could eventually have it in their body and they'd be perfectly, they can convince them of anything. They can convince them of anything. Look around us, right? So this is one of the funnier spins I've seen in a while when they actually come on TV and they're like, well, the old school headphones are making a comeback. And then they're like, are EMF frequencies dangerous? He's like, well, they can be, but not with the Bluetooth. Don't worry. And don't worry at all about, the iPod, the Apple ones, because they're approved by a government agency that we can trust. Hey, did you know that if you listen to music too loud, you can get a headache? Oh, do you like how they spun that and they just start talking about how you can get a headache, or you could get, your hairline could get messed up from having headphones in all day? Pretty unbelievable. It's pretty unbelievable, but we can look at this stuff and laugh. But the reality of the matter is that this type of propaganda, which is government-created propaganda, works on these people. They could come out and say that tasering yourself in the nuts is beneficial to your health, and these people will say that we're crazy for saying that that's a crazy notion. They believe whatever they're told. It's like the old motto that Nixon had, right? He said the American people don't believe anything until they see it on a television, and that's 100% truth, right? So stories like this, hearing people actually learning about EMF frequencies, is a very good thing. But the question is, why does it stop there? Why do people not start correlating a lot of the health problems going on? Not just mental health. There's a lot of people, there's an increase in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, not just to the earbuds, because there's a lot of people who are older who aren't using those, to cell phones. The fact that men and women are not able to have babies anymore without going and getting IVF. Huh? Nobody's suspicious, right? Look around you at these towers. Then you should just start like an onion, peeling the layers off if you're out there and you're asleep. Start peeling the layers off and just saying, who is responsible for putting these here? Who owns the land? Why do I see this all over a public highway? So the government's allowing these to go up. So does the government have a deal with AT&T? Does the government have a deal with Verizon? Well, of course they have a deal. I mean, this is American communism. It's a corporation. It's an American corporation. So it's the corporations who are really running everything, which gives them carte blanche over our land, allows them to put things up that are not beneficial to our health. And then when you call out things like that being beneficial to your health, well, you're automatically silenced. For some of you, you probably don't remember because I make a lot of content. I'm sure it's hard to remember. But during the outbreak, when there was some YouTubers you might remember who were getting strikes, they used to give you a test. They would put a test in there. So you get a strike. They'd say, you have to pass this test. If you pass this test, you won't get your channel removed. You get a strike taken away, that kind of a thing, right? They would make you take a test if you're talking about 5G or if you were talking about the outbreak out there. And you had to answer it correctly or you don't pass the test. So if you're going to try to answer it the right way, they won't let you answer it that way. And they were ingraining it in people's heads about 5G, about how it has nothing to do with any outbreak that occurred. It has nothing to do with any mental health problems. It's perfectly fine because they're ingraining it in people's heads. The government will do whatever they can to make sure anyone is silenced who speaks out and informs the public on what's really going on, right? And it's not about being smarter than anyone else. It's not about, all it's about is making people aware of why they don't feel good. There's so many people out there that don't feel good. And we could talk about basic things spiritually. Like we could talk about spiritually why people don't feel good. It's understandable, right? We can talk about people who are lost, who haven't found Christ, why they feel the way that they feel. But we could also talk about our physical flesh being completely abused the way that it is, from chemtrailing above, okay, from the chemicals in the food all the way down to the chemicals in the water, to literally around the clock being exposed to this type of radiation poison. Because even for those of us who have gone out of our way to not be near phones, which is me personally, okay, we're still exposed to this because they pop the towers up around our homes without our consent, apartment buildings without our consent. Drive to the grocery store. It's sitting there. You'll see it. Drive down a highway. Drive down by a farm if you live near a farm. You'll see one. But the more you start seeing it, you get desensitized to it. I always talk about it with the giant with our electrical grid, right? When you see just the big wires and you see the power grid and all this other stuff around the road, it looks like giant upside down pentagrams, Baphomet pentagrams, right? We automatically desensitize. We've seen it our whole lives. You don't even notice it anymore if you drive around and see that, do you? And that's eventually what happens with these 5G towers. You just eventually don't notice it. Sometimes you'll notice the one, have you ever noticed how they try to dress them up and put some of these towers, make it look like a tree? Well, why do you think they do that? Because it looks pretty? Well, they in the beginning of this process, they don't even want you to notice it. They want it to be seamless, right? But they know that they don't even need to dress it up. Just give it time. Time is their friend in the sense of getting people on board with stuff because that's a conditioning mechanism. Time. Right? The more time that goes by, the more you start accepting stuff, unless you revolt against it. If there isn't a revolution against it or pushback against it, it just becomes the new norm, right? And that's what they're doing right now with a lot of this crazy stuff, right? We're talking about men having babies, okay? 5 years ago, the notion, everybody would have agreed and went crazy. Now it's just like, even if you bring it up to a casual person, they're just like, whatever. Let them think what they want, if it makes them happy. Because that's how this works psychologically. You become exhausted from it. It's no longer shocking to you. It just becomes the new norm. That's what they always tell you, the new norm. And they normalize all of this wickedness, and they also normalize all of this technology to get you to accept it. Because if people out there knew before the phone came out, before cell phones came out, they said warning, okay? And we're not just gonna put a warning label on a box. We'll put videos out every day on the news about, hey, if you have a phone, you might live 30 years less. You might get cancer, you might get Alzheimer's. Nobody would have got a phone in the first place, right? So now everyone's dependent on the phone, and you'll start hearing little things about earbuds and little things about 5G, but nobody's gonna fight to say, get these things out of our country, get these things off our roads. This is endangering our health. You're putting us off, because the government just goes, we don't know the long-term effects. Oh, you don't know the long-term effects, but you're putting these up without testing out the long-term effects. How do you not know the long-term effects of radiation? We all know the long-term effects, right? Put something in the microwave, tell me how it lasts, all right? Right? Put a fork in the microwave for a minute, tell me how it goes. Okay, put food in there you're trying to cook for a long period of time, right? Put a piece of cheese in a bowl in the microwave, cheddar cheese. Put it on for 10 minutes. How's the cheese gonna look after 10 minutes versus 10 seconds, right? They know the long-term effects. The problem is that they don't care, and they know exactly what it's gonna do, and they want it to occur, okay? We talk about depopulation. There's so many different things happening at once that nobody pays attention to that is causing depopulation. It's not just, people are poisoning themselves. They're poisoning us. Some people, yes, are willingly poisoning themselves. They're poisoning our skies, our water supply, our food supply, and they're drilling us with radiation. You ever notice how nobody sleeps very good anymore? Right? People are like, people don't sleep like they used to. They need to take melatonin. They need to take stuff for anxiety to sleep. What do you think it's from? You think it's because you had a tough day at the office, a little stressed with your girlfriend? People were still able to relax. It's because of radiation exposure, all of this stuff. And the phone is the culprit, and the towers are the culprit. And yes, earbuds are a culprit. But like I said earlier, you'll see propaganda like that from the Today Show, and they just play dumb because that's all it takes. Oh, interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? It's an interesting notion. It's an interesting trend. Is it true? It's not true, however. It's not. Oh, okay. Okay, did you know that if you play your music too loud, you can get a headache? Really? Oh my gosh. Did you know if you taser your nuts, you're going to be in pain too? Really? I mean, these people are just completely brain dead. Brain dead. And it takes propaganda like that, and it somehow works on these people. But everybody out there, if they just started using common sense, and common sense would start with the notion of who gave permission for these things to go up, right? Why is the government just constantly talking about how we have to beat everybody to 6G, right? Do any of you notice the difference with your phone? Of course you don't. Of course you don't, but you just continue to go about your day because you're constantly distracted with entertainment, with technology, with problems in your own life, which is understandable. But the people who are supposed to be working for us are working against us. And this is just more of them telling you, look, we'll bring attention to some of you out there bringing attention to frequencies. We'll put it on, and we'll just completely deflect it, and it'll work. And they're holding up the middle finger, smiling at us. And eventually, again, they'll come out and they'll say flat out, hey, you know what? Doctors say your cell phone can cause brain cancer. Some of these people go, man, but I won't get brain cancer today, right? No? All right, well, it's something I'll think about, and they'll never think about it again. Until, of course, they start popping it up on the TV and say, hey, everybody, you're not allowed to have a phone anymore. The government's saying the phone is bad for you because of the radiation. Everyone will go, what? Because they'll just keep playing, because they will. Because eventually it's going to go inside your body. Then they're going to convince you and promise you there's nothing else with the phone. Because ultimately the goal is to get it in your body. And that's going to be one of the methods that they use. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.